Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg betrayed America, and he admits to using censorship on his platform. I'm John Mike Keene, and we are big fans of free speech. And Zuckerberg, it was a little late. You screwed everything up, but we're going to go back to where it all started. Here he is on Joe Rogan.
So we took a different path than Twitter. I mean, basically the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant.
That's about the government pressure that the FBI put on Zuckerberg back then, and he has changed his song now. Here's Colin Rugg, new. Mark Zuckerberg throws the Biden-Harris administration under the bus, says he regrets working with them to censor Americans on his platforms. Zuckerberg also promised not to make financial contributions during his election cycle. Guys, this one is huge. Remember his $400 million he went to election centers. During a previous appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, Zuckerberg said the FBI put pressure on Meta to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story, hinting it was Russian disinformation, which now we know is FBI disinformation.
If something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, we also have this third-party fact-checking program because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And for the 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased.
That's just admitting that they have their fingers on the scale on preferred narratives. Here's Mays. Today, Mark Zuckerberg admitted to writing that the Biden administration pressured Facebook to censor COVID-19 content. Here's Mayorkas lying about it under oath in 2022, 100% absolutely committing perjury. This is perjury, ladies and gentlemen. When is Mayorkas going to prison? Here's Josh Hawley.
Now, you said earlier this year that you disbanded the Disinformation Governance Board, which I thought was totally unconstitutional, but that turns out to be, at best, misleading. That's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what you're doing. Your own quadrennial review, which was just reported in the press, says that disinformation is going to be the new focus at DHS. The Quad Review says that DHS plans to target, I'm quoting now, inaccurate information domestically on a wide array of subjects, including, quoting, the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic, the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines, racial justice, U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, and the nature of U.S. support for Ukraine.
Yeah, if you disagree with statements on Ukraine or racial justice, Mayorkas is sending the spies after you.
A federal judge has just found as a finding of fact, Mr. Secretary, that your office, and I'm going to quote now, is supervising the nerve center of federally directed censorship.
That backs up what Mark Zuckerberg said. Mayorkas denies it, and Zuckerberg now says, yeah, they did it.
We have example after example of this administration coordinated, apparently, according to a federal court, by your agency, pressuring, coercing social media companies to engage in censorship. Is that constitutional?
That is unequivocally false.
Is what the emails show.
It is unequivocally false, Senator.
Yeah, you have the emails, but it's false. Don't believe your eyes on what we're doing. Believe what I say. He is a bold-faced, you-know-what. What a reptile. He shed his skin just 30 seconds before this.
You are not pressuring the big tech companies to take down accounts. You are not meeting with them to ask them to censor on your behalf.
That is correct. We are not.
Mr. Secretary, it has been established for years in this country, as you very well know because you're a lawyer, that the federal government may not use private third parties to engage in activities that are unconstitutional. That's exactly what you and this administration are doing. You are leveraging private companies to carry out censorship on your behalf. It's dystopian, but worse than that, it's unconstitutional.
It's also false.
That's perjury. We'll get him if Trump gets in office. He needs to go to jail.
You know, I was certainly sympathetic early on when it was clear that there would be some outbreaks. No matter
That's how Zuckerberg was back when he was for the censorship. Here's Dom Luker. Breaking news: Zuckerberg, the founder of Meta, formerly known as Facebook and Instagram, admits he regrets working with the Biden-Harris administration by censoring information online during the COVID era. Breaking: Zuckerberg regrets caving to Biden's censorship demands, cuts Democrat funding. Mark Zuckerberg, in a bombshell letter to the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, we're going to read that letter in a second, expresses deep regret over Meta's compliance with Biden administration pressure to censor COVID content in 2021. The big tech mogul admits they should have been more outspoken against government-led censorship attempts. He now believes this government pressure was wrong and vows to push back against similar future attempts. He got that from that shtick from Elon Musk. He's learning. Here's the actual letter that he wrote. It was addressed to Jim Jordan and Jerry Nadler. To the Honorable Jim Jordan, it was CC'd to Jerry Nadler, I mean. Dear Chairman Jordan, I appreciate the committee's interest in content moderation on online platforms. As you're aware, Meta has produced thousands of documents as part of our investigation and made a dozen employees available for transcribed interviews. Further to our cooperation with your investigation, I welcome the opportunity to share what I've taken from this process. In 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take content down, and we own our decisions, including COVID-19 related changes we made to our enforcement in the wake of this pressure. I believe the government pressure was wrong, period, and I regret that we were not outspoken about it, period. I also think we made some choices that, with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we wouldn't make today. Like I said, our teams at the time, I feel strongly we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration in either direction, and we're ready to push back if something like this happens again. Well, he learned. He can learn. I don't know if I trust him or not. In a separate situation, the FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up of the 2020 election that fall, when we saw a New York Post story reporting on corruption allegations involving then Democrat presidential nominee Joe Biden's family. We sent that story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it while waiting for a reply. It's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation because Adam Schiff is lying to you. And in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story. We've changed our policies and processes to make sure this doesn't happen again. For instance, we no longer temporarily demote things in the US while waiting for fact checkers. Apart from content moderation, I want to address the contributions I made during the last presidential cycle to support electoral infrastructure. That's $400 million, which Mike Lindell called Zuckerbucks. The idea here was to make sure local election jurisdictions across the country had the resources they needed to help people vote safely during a global pandemic. I made these contributions through the Chan Zuckerberg initiative. Chan's his wife. They were designed to be nonpartisan, spread across urban, rural, and suburban communities. Still, despite the analysis I've seen showing otherwise, I know that some people believe this work benefited one party over the other. My goal is to be neutral and not play a role one way or another, or even to appear to be playing a role. So I don't plan on making a similar contribution this cycle. Respectfully, Mark Zuckerberg. That sounds believable. He should probably give $400 million to the Trump campaign just to balance things out. Here's the Western Journal commentary poll. 17% of Biden voters would have abandoned him if they knew about stories the media censored. That's enough to tip an election. I'm John Mike Keane. Subscribe.